Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all today? So we are just waiting for the Hope Mars mission. As you can see, just a little under 2 hours to go. Just under 2 hours to go, UAE time. We will be joined by our guests very soon. And that's very exciting. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you can join me this morning. It's very early here, my time. That's why I look a bit disheveled. Let's go get some guests. As we fill up the room. I hope we're all having a good morning. Who's excited to go to Mars? UAE off to Mars? I myself am very much looking forward to this mission. The UAE Space Agency, obviously not that old. 2006, I think, is when the UAE Space Agency formed. And they started their march. And they haven't really been pushing in earnest on this measure, in this adventure, I think until 2013. It's when they really started to push forward in this venture. So we find that very exciting. Here at the Archer Report. It has been delayed. It's been delayed, I think, once or twice. Malik will tell us. Bad weather in Japan, which is unfortunate, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. We know with a lot of the bad weather, especially the rain happening in and around. I just can't get hold of my hair in quarantine, which is unfortunate. But you know how quarantine is. And we will be filling this room up with some guests soon.
Life. We have goals that depend on bodies and brains. We work and learn better. We love better. When our bodies and our brains function better. At Thrivous, our goal is to help you improve your brain and body, to help you achieve your goals. So that's the power we encapsulate.
Hello.
Hey mate, how are you?
Ready for help with your
I'm fine.
goals?
How are you?
Visit Thrivous.com.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, very good. So when do you plan to start the broadcast?
We've started.
Okay. Okay, because I plan to join at around in 40 minutes around. Yeah, so 2 hours before the lunch. I don't know if that's possible for you.
Sure. Yeah, sure. You're on
Okay.
you're on the air now, so you can tell everyone your plan if you want.
Okay, very good. So yeah, I have a couple of stuff to finish, and I'll join in 40 minutes. Okay.
All right, very cool. Yeah, thank you very much for for coming and saying hello, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm sure it will be a great session, and I hope it will be a successful lunch as well.
All right, we'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Hello, Malik. All right, we're trying to get Malik in. Everybody knows Malik. Thank you very much, Malik, for organizing this and helping organize this. We very much appreciate it. We do hope that the weather is fine. I will get you an update on the weather when we get some people in here. I am just trying to work out where our people are, our other commentators, and just some other stuff that's going on.
Life. We have goals that depend on bodies and brains. We work and learn better. We love better when our bodies and our brains function better. At Thrivous, our goal is to help you improve your brain and body, to help you achieve your goals. So that's the power we encapsulate. Ready for help with your goals? Visit Thrivous.com.
Hello, Malik. Hello, Malik. Are you there? Well, while we wait for Malik to jump in and our other guests, I'm going to start talking about the Hope Mars mission. So firstly, I hope that you can all share the link around. We can get some live audience in here, ask questions, do comments, all that sort of stuff, as we would appreciate your feedback on the stream. Malik, can you hear me? All right, working on it, ladies and gentlemen, we're working on it.
alone. Uncertainty, doubt, fear. In a strange place, something stops you, challenges test your strength. A rush of adrenaline. The light. The air. It is the moment. You elevated.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I am trying to get in contact with our guests. We'll see what happens down the road. I know Malik is there somewhere. I know she's there somewhere. I talked to her for a second. But we will get back, and the other gentleman said he'll come back in about 30 minutes from now or less as we count down to the Hope Mars mission, which will be taking off at 1:58:14 a.m. UAE time. So this is very exciting. I am sure that this is still happening in Japan. We will get more updates as Malik comes in. But the last I checked, the launch was happening from Japan. And there's been bad weather in Japan, as there's been bad weather all over the place. But let's get you a little bit more information on it while we wait for our guests. So here we go. This is the NASA Space Science and Coordination Archive. The Emirates Mars mission, or HOPE, is a Mars orbiter mission. The launch has now been rescheduled to take place no earlier than the 19th of July 2020. Built by the UAE, the mission will orbit Mars and study dynamics of the Martian atmosphere and its interaction with outer space and the solar wind. The primary scientific objectives are to search for the connection between current Martian weather and the ancient climate of Mars, study the loss mechanisms of Mars' atmosphere to space by tracking the behavior and escape of hydrogen. Just calling one of our guests.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Good, good. I'm just talking about I'm just reading the National Aeronautics and Space Administration summary of the mission.
Yep.
You are on air.
Yes, I see it.
All right, fantastic. All right, so would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay. My name is Andrzej Kotarski. I'm Vice President of Polish Astronautical Society and board member of Polish chapter of Mars Society.
Fantastic. And how long have you been involved in that role?
Oh, I was not involved in NLO. And do you mean Mars mission NLO?
No, how long have you been involved in the role at the Polish Mars Society?
Oh, I was one of founders of Polish Mars Society. It began in 1997 when I sent mail to Rob Zublin how to become a member of Mars Society. And he contacted me and indicated to my colleagues, which were also interested in establishing a Polish chapter of Mars Society. And we established it in 1999, and its history started. We had a few projects, educational project that Thrivous goes to Mars, in which three Polish children took in 2 Mars missions. First mission was Mars reconnaissance. Sorry, not Mars reconnaissance, but it was Mars exploration rover. They were taken. 2 children took in preparation phase in NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. 2 years earlier, one kid did an unexpected discovery of black boulders on its on Mars surface, which were discovered by one of Mars missions orbiting this planet.
Fantastic. And tell us about tell us about the Hope Mars mission and your involvement with the Mars mission and your hopes for the Hope Mars mission, because obviously it's going to be very exciting for the UAE. This is a big advance for them. I mean, they only had a short window in which this whole project was envisioned, you know, set up, funded, built, and now it's on its way. What do you think about this mission as a whole, especially for the UAE and for the Gulf region?
Okay, we need to divide expected results for few graphs. First, it is a big political mission because it places United Arab Emirates in place of reserved for superpowers which are exploring Mars. So far, United States, Russia, India did it, and Europe too. And United Arab Emirates will be which exclusively made it. Yeah. But Mars is very hard to explore because only 40% of spacecraft missions has been succeeded.
Yes, absolutely.
The second goal is scientific Hope Emirates Mars mission is designed to study atmosphere and weather on Mars. That is why all instrument suite was designed to take measurements of its properties. And third goal of this mission it is economical because United Arab Emirates is going to diverse its economy from energy resources like oil. They are going to knowledge-based society and economy. That is why this mission is at the pinnacle of its goals to accomplish. And also, as a spin-off from this mission, there will be new generation of engineers and scientists which will be pursue high technology goals and projects after this mission. It was set in vision of UAE Space Agency for 2030, and also in vision of UAE, which wants to become one of the best places on the world in economy, in innovations, and education. That is why this mission is very significant for Gulf region and for United Arab Emirates.
Aha, I understand. We are getting Malik in at some point. I think she's either here or she's coming, so we're very excited for that as well. You can just adjust your camera wherever you want, and I will fix it up. Don't worry. Hello, Malik.
Hi, hello. Hi.
Hello.
How are you? Hello, Andrej. So finally, I can pronounce your name now. I have been trying to get it. Hi, Still, how are you? Thank you for having us for at this historic day. The UAE is shooting for Mars. I'm so excited. It's I'm sorry about all the posts on Facebook and LinkedIn because I'm really excited. Can you imagine that UAE started its space program not long ago, and we are shooting to Mars. It's unbelievable and amazing how they've done it and how fast they did it with the capacities, capabilities, and the leadership that we have here. Finally, we are going to Mars.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this, and we were just saying that there's a couple of different priorities for the UAE. The gentleman was just saying that's really good. But the time window, the amount of energy that the UAE has had to invest in this small time window. The space agency itself has only been around since, what, 2006? Malik, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the project that we're talking about has only been around since, what, 2013, 2014? So it's a very small time window to get all that technical development on the ground, the funding, the enthusiasm, the energy. And this is something that's really going to be really exciting for the region as a whole. You're talking about a big leap forward for the region and for this part of the world. It's really something unique and exciting. Yeah, and it's a great mission too. I mean, we're talking about Mars. We're talking about one of the big final pushes to analyze Mars before we do start to get the settlements, the foundation work for the settlements underway, which is the next step, I think, right?
Actually, as per my knowledge into because my background is international law and policies. The scientific part is not really my thing, and that's why we have great a professional who can explain to us, and hopefully we get Ahmed also on board because to come and explain to us more, because he's making his PhD particularly in this subject. But the objectives of UAE Mars mission, the main objectives are understanding the climate dynamics and the global weather map. Through the lower atmosphere of Mars, and this is what it's literally said on the website of the Mars mission. The second one is explaining how the weather changes the escape of hydrogen and oxygen, and I believe that Ahmed will explain to us more when he joins. And the third main objective is understanding the structure and the variability of hydrogen and oxygen in upper atmosphere. And And actually, like I said, I can talk later on about the environmental, the investment climate and the economic climate of UAE, because actually I advise investors when they want to make foreign direct investment here and when they want to invest in here. So I can speak about that part later on. But the scientific part, I leave it to the people that they are really good at that.
Yeah. So he's coming back on the hour, so another 20 minutes until he comes back, and he'll be dropping in soon. But yes, absolutely. We were going over before these goals. The primary scientific objectives are to search for the connection between the current Martian weather and the ancient climate of Mars, study the lost mechanisms of Mars' atmosphere and space by tracking the behavior and escape of hydrogen, oxygen, to investigate how the lower and upper levels of the Martian atmosphere are connected, and create a global picture of how the Martian atmosphere varies throughout the day and the year. So very much focused on the weather and the atmosphere, etc. And this is a satellite. This isn't a rocket. The Malik or the professor, other gentlemen, we are launching from Japan. Is that right? Are we still launching from Japan? I can't get that information.
Sure.
Yes, mission is envisioned to launch, expected to launch from Tanegashima, which was a long time cosmodrome for H2A rockets, which were launching various payloads.
Fantastic. And these some of these Japanese rockets have been very, very successful in the 21st century. There have been a lot of very successful Japanese launches, even when some Russian and American launches have failed. And I remember how the Japanese came to the rescue a few times when the International Space Station was starved of some supplies, and we had a few dud launches, and it was the Japanese reliable rockets that have come to the rescue over time. So I expect a good launch. I don't expect any failures based on Japanese history and their reliability of the rockets and their delivery systems.
I think that row of success of Japanese launchers had also beginning in a few failures, which JAXA experienced at the beginning of the exploitation of this rocket. That is why always in launch systems we have series of various incidents, and after that, which any mistakes or maybe low quality errors were qualified, then we have a reliable launcher. Ariane 5 it is always the example which has debuted beginning with explosions, and then later it was a successful rocket.
All right, very cool. My friend keeps mucking around with my camera.
Sorry. Yes, I believe the Japanese space capabilities are also among the few space, let's say, newcomers. What we call them in literature of space or new space. So they are joining the new space era and getting very strong at it, because they were not among the big, like the nation that they started from, like with the space era, since it was the 70s and so on. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Andres.
Andrzej.
Andres. Okay, I will get there. No problem. I'm so sorry. It's difficult with the names from one place to another, but internet is grouping people and space is getting us very close. It's amazing how it is. We have the community is from different parts of the world, and name pronunciation is not going to be a barrier, I think.
Oh, indeed, it is not. Okay, we know that the Japanese launch vehicle started in 70s years during when the first rockets were created by brilliant engineer. First rocket, the Japanese were called pencil rockets because the shape was similar to pencil with fins. And Japanese began from small rockets, going through building larger rockets and introducing finally H-2A rockets, which has also H-2B variant, which is used to launch Contuori, the cargo vehicle for ISS. And H-2A is used for launching commercial satellites and interplanetary probes like HOPE, Emirati, Mars mission.
Thank you. So yes, but what I pointed to, they were not in the race from the beginning, like the former Soviet Union and United States. They were not in that race in the beginning. Oh yeah, they joined after.
Japanese had own program for developing its space capabilities because they positioned it to develop own space capabilities to realize own goals. In visions at the early 21st century, Japanese were interested in the moon, but also JAXA space exploration plans are reaching for asteroids and Mars.
Yeah, the Japanese caught up very, very quickly in terms of their space development, their technological development, especially coming from post-war Japan, where they were completely devastated, to becoming quite a hot player in the space race, especially through the 80s. There was a lot of capabilities developed through the 80s. Japan is a very interesting player. So HOPE is launching on top of a Japanese HIIA rocket out of Japan's Tenigashima Space Center, located off an island off the southern coast of the country. At the Tenigashima, the launch is taking place in the wee morning hours of the 20th. That's today. In a few hours, you can see the countdown there on the screen. And that is taken from The Verge. And this is I will bring up what I think is a quick Google search of the rocket itself, the actual type of rocket, which I'm putting up on screen. And so I think that is the rocket type. Beautiful looking rocket. Beautiful looking rocket.
That's true. I would like to add one digression. Launch rate from Tanegashima was very strongly reduced because fishermen, which were fishing in nearby, they claimed that the launch of H-2 rockets were making fishing difficult. That is why Japanese launch rate was very low, maybe from 1, maybe 2, 3 per year. That is issue which is very important for Japanese to balance interest of space exploration with its interest of their fishermen and environment. Now we have sustainable way of development proposed from many sides. and we have to take into account environment in which space activities are performed, and also interest of other parties.
Very interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So now,
Yeah, go. Yes, tell me.
no, I interrupted you. Sorry, continue.
Sorry. Yeah, going back to the UAE experience with the space sector, actually, I would like to add that it all started with Sheikh Zayed, Allah yarhamah, it means like God bless his soul, the founding father of UAE in the 70s, when he met astronauts, NASA's astronauts, and this is in the stories that we all know. He decided to get UAE in that into space, and to have the space program. And at that time, in the 70s, UAE wasn't as we know it today. So all is the vision of Sheikh Zayed, the founding father, Allah yarhamah, how he had his vision, that it took over and embraced by all the nation and the leaders, and carried his legacy, how he built this country. I remember, as you know, I am originally Tunisian. I remember 15 years ago when I came to UAE, like a big part of UAE was covered, was still desert. And today, actually, we see how it is, and leading and working hand in hand with the other gender. So I would like to add also, in 2006, the UAE began establishing knowledge transfer programs in preparation of the grand vision of the space vision and the space dream that we have seen, and how it started with what I said. It all started with hope. To go to Mars. So the Mars vision started in 2006. And it went according to the plan. And also, I would like to add also, a lot of people they say the oil-rich country. Actually, UAE, and especially Dubai, it's built its economy and used the resources to build this vision. It's not based on oil. It got to the point to get oil independent in order to have a sustainable economy, to achieve all the projects and to build the vision that it started with Sheikh Zayed, Allah yarhamah.
Yeah, that's some really good points. I was going to ask you about the atmosphere there in the UAE. The UAE seems to be one of the countries in the world that seems to be on the forefront of the future at all times. They seem to be pushing the boundary in everything they do, whether that's living in the location, which is a dry location, no doubt, living in the location they do, their architecture, their innovations, their technologies, their ambitions now in space as well. The UAE, their investments in the medical field, and working with these other city-states around there as well in investing in the future and preparing for the future. And the UAE seems to be one of these countries that's really got their eye on the future. They know where the future is going, and they're helping to create and shape the future. And that's what's exciting about this launch. And yeah, the UAE is really punching above their weight. And I think we have a specific. They had to launch this year because they wanted to correlate the hope reaching Mars at the same time as the UAE was having their 50th birthday. Is that right?
Yes. So that's right. Actually, the strategy, it's with choosing the exact timing. It's well thought of, because actually also some people they thought that it would not happen during this time and during the setbacks from COVID-19. And actually, they against the odds, they went and it's happening. And I hope it will be a successful mission. And going back to UAE futuristic, let's say, country, the way that they are moving forward with artificial intelligence, with technology, and with non-dependency anymore, like on oil and natural resources. It's unbelievable, because one of the countries that it really did not have an interruption in the services, but public services, and the leading country to face COVID-19 was UAE. And this one is not just said because I belong here. My son is born here, so he's Emirati by birth and by heart, and I became Emirati by heart also. It's because it's the truth, and I've done it through research and the way how the public policy was worked, and how the management of the COVID-19 using the public policy. It's one of the countries that it took a very quick, let's say, initiative. It worked its way out. We had a lockdown, and people are very civilized, because when we had lockdown, people, they were really up to responsibility, the civic responsibility. Also, there's something, it's about the culture itself in the country, moving for excellence, and being responsible. The public services, courts, and all other public services never got interrupted, and it was going on through online, because we had already the infrastructure, technological infrastructure, so we did not suffer at all, not like other countries. And I assisted in a conference for lawyers conference, and they were really suffering from that, because actually they were not, they were out of business at that time, like during the peak period of the COVID-19, and that they couldn't work, they did not go to the courts, and so on. So everything was interrupted, which is different, because you could see how advanced the country during these type of times, during crisis, how it's managed, how its initiative is been taken, how the civil society is reacting. That's how you can check if that country is up to the level and it's moving forward or not.
Absolutely, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Really on the forefront of a lot of different things there. UAE really pushing ahead. No, we're really excited. So why do you think, strategically, why do you think the UAE wants to study Mars? Is it for UAE prestige? Is it for science and technology procurement? Is it for national? What's the reason? Is it for humanity? What do you think? What do you think a reason might be to send this project up to analyze Mars?
I will let Mr. Andrej answer, then I will add if it's possible. But I think he will cover it, because he knows very well. Because the first time when he heard about Hope mission, he told me, "What is the economic return?" And I told him at that time, I don't think there's economic return, but he explained to me, and he sent me some documentations, and he told me exactly, because a lot of a lot of data sometimes it's a little bit difficult to access, or it takes time to get access. But he explained to me,
just before you do explain, I'll read what the Emirates mission.ae says, and it says, why Mars? And it's actually very nice on here. It says, why are we exploring Mars? The red planet has captured human imagination for centuries. we are now at the junction where we know a great deal about the planet, and we have the vision and technology to explore further. Mars is an obvious target for exploration for many reasons, from our pursuit to find extraterrestrial life to someday expand human civilization to other planets. Mars serves as a long and collaborative project for the entire human race. So that's a very broad, all-encompassing goal. Everything from extraterrestrial life to expansion of the human race to settlement of celestial objects. But what would you say, sir?
Why Mars? And why UAE is sending probe? It is one of long-term goals in their space program. When you will see at Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, you will see that a part of space applications like Earth observation, technology development for the students' education program, you will see Hope mission as a stepping stone into space exploration, which is conducted by one of Gulf countries. And also we have the vision which is reaching for the next century for setting the colony on Mars. That is why it is, from my point of view, it is very coherent plan and long-term strategy which envisions not only making space exploration, but it is also connected for economical development of this region. From casual view, Gulf region is seen as a very unrest place, which is always in the war for resources, for political interest. And space exploration conducted in cooperation with United States, like Mission Hope, it is a good example for the indicating that Gulf region countries also, they have own ambitions. They also want to be among countries which can explore and use the outer space in peaceful purposes. It is the example of this mission which is giving for other countries. We can cooperate independently of our policy and our interests in common goal, which is space exploration and utilization. That is my opinion and my view, in which I see in this mission.
Yeah, no, I concur. I think you know, it's a very technical feat. It's a very hard thing to do, to develop one of these satellites, particular these weather type satellites, to analyze a foreign celestial object or a planet, in this case, and it would take a lot of. You know, one of the great things in science and technology, and what you do, Malik, and everything, is actually building the contacts list, building up the list of contacts, and collaborating with people around the world. And if you have a project like this, it really generates the network node, and you know, it really puts the UAE on the map, which is another, you know, fantastic. You know, it's a boon for the UAE. The UAE, you know, they've got the flight. You know, United Arab Emirates. They've got the aircraft, planes. Everybody knows about their aircraft and their planes, and they've done a really good job. I mean, they punch above the weight. I mean, it's a global marketing campaign for the UAE. Their aircrafts are very well known. It's a great marketing strategy, but you know, doing this, something like this in terms of space, putting themselves on the space map, is also equally important, and very much so punching above their weight, just as they've done in flight. So that's very exciting. Building those connections, building those networks, building up the history, you know, renting out the you know, collaboration with the Japanese, or with a lot of these American universities, which they have been collaborating with in order to prepare the satellite. These are all very valuable for the future. very, very valuable. And if they do it on a scientific basis, which is what they're doing for science and technology, with some sort of a return that can rebound in a collaborative way with nations around the world, then they don't get locked out in the future stresses and strains of geopolitical rivalries, etc. And they won't be subject of sanctions or the other things that you might see coming down the road with some other players, Iran, for example, or others that we might see. So they differentiate themselves in the region as a player that wants to, that's serious about space, that they're serious about working with other people and other players in other countries, and it gives the youth of the nation. And I think this is a very important thing. It gives the youth of the nation and the young people and the scientists and some sort of new golden age to aim for. And Arabic people, the Islamic golden age is gone. It's in the past, but it doesn't mean it can't happen again. And these are the people who founded, in many ways, science and technology. And a lot of innovation in terms of empirical observation. All right, we're just getting in. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. Do you hear me?
We do.
How are you?
I'm very well. Oh no, you've lost.
Also in my speech about centennial plan of UAE to 2071, which is very interesting in alignment with national space strategy of UAE. I am fresh leading of those documents, and it is very impressive work for a country which has in technology development, it is a big leap which is observed in mature countries, development in space strategy and centennial plans of economical and educational and political development of the country. Very impressive.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It is. Especially that I wanted to add also that space now it's considered to be one of the soft powers used in the international relation. Hi, Ahmed. How are you?
Hello. How are you, Malik?
Hi, Gatmat.
Hello.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
fine. So good to have you. We're waiting for your scientific input.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome. We're very excited to have you here. And we are very excited to hear the scientific side of this hope story.
Yes. Thank you again for the invitation. I'm very glad to be with you today, and also in this special day that will actually mark the history of the Arab region, and also we hope that it will, and I'm even sure that the Hope Mission will have significant contribution to the scientific investigation of the Martian atmosphere. So actually, the Hope Mission, I know what you have already discussed, but it actually was planned 6 years ago. So it was announced six years ago, and they had a huge team of 400 or 500 engineers and scientists working on it during all these years. And actually, one important thing about the Hope Mission is that I see it as a complementary and let's say it's the continuity of what the MAVEN mission have done. The mission of NASA that studied actually the upper atmosphere of planet Mars, and that actually proved and detected, it even measured the rate of escape of particles from the upper atmosphere due to the solar wind. So this was the main achievement of MAVEN. So what the Emiratis have done, they worked a lot and very closely with the team of MAVEN that worked on this probe to actually provide data and outputs that are complementary to those of the Maven space mission. So yeah, actually the probe will also work. One of its objectives is it will be working on again measuring the rate of escape of particles and the characteristics of that region, the upper region of the atmosphere, so the collisional region, but actually it will be in a different way, since it will have a global scan that Maven didn't have, because actually the HOPE probe has a very specific orbit. So it will benefit from that different orbit compared to that of Maven, to have a global view of the atmosphere of planet Mars, and to study then different areas of this atmosphere. Yeah, another thing is that they will also study the medium and lower atmosphere, less than 50 kilometers of altitude above the surface of Mars, and they will actually try to characterize the phenomena that are happening in that region, especially they will do it around the year on a global scale, and also during all the day. So that, I think this is something very important for the scientific community, and I'm sure they will provide valuable data for scientists around the world. They are also very open to collaborate with other agencies, with other scientists in Europe, or in the US, in Asia, in Russia, in all over the world. They are very open to collaborate with scientists, and this is something very important for us. So yeah, I really wish that will be a huge success for the country and for the region and for the whole world. So yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I totally agree. I really hope that this is the beginning of something very, very good. And why do you think that they picked Mars? Why this mission in particular? Why are we looking at observing the atmosphere of Mars? Is that something that in 2013 was relevant and it's not relevant now? Or is this a very, very important aspect for technological and human advancement and the other goals that we put forward? Why this mission?
Yeah, why this mission? Okay, so there are two reasons, I think. So there is the scientific reason, which is actually because we still have a poor knowledge about the atmosphere of planet Mars. Although we had a lot of missions, and personally, I am currently working on one of those missions, which is the first European mission that went to Mars, Mars Express, that arrived in 2003 to planet Mars, and actually. We still, until now, processing the data that was taken by Mars Express in 2004. So we have a huge quantity of data that's still unprocessed of several regions on Mars, of the Martian atmosphere. So we have already to process that data, and there is also a difference in the type of data, because the atmosphere of Mars will be different between the early 2000, 2001, 2002, and that time and now. So we would like also to see what are the changes since that time, and also try to have more information and more detailed information about the composition of planet Mars and the phenomena that are occurring actually in the atmosphere. And the second thing, which is also very important, why Mars? Because you can understand this from the name of the mission. The name is Hope, Amal in Arabic, and Hope is it's actually to send some kind of message to all the young people in the Arab region, especially because and in the developing world in general, because this is maybe besides India, but India is still a huge industrial country, but there are not a lot of countries that even try to go to Mars and reach Mars that are from the developing world. So they would like to send a message that look, we can do this. We can reach Mars like the big nations, the spacefaring nations, let's say. So you also can do a lot of things that you. So don't put limits for yourself. This is the main message that they are trying to send, and I think they succeeded in that because because at the same time it was in 2 weeks ago, the UAE Space Agency, they launched a program that is called the Arab Space Genius. And they received 37,000 applications from the Arab world. So you see the impact, and all of them are young people. So you see the impact of actually this type of missions on the psychological or the motivation of the young people regionally. And we hope that these type of missions will become more, let's say, we'll have more missions in partnership between developing countries or countries from Africa, from the Arab world, so we can reduce the costs, and at the same time we can also motivate people from these nations to work and to improve their current situation. So these are the two main reasons, I think, why they pick up Mars.
Can I just say at a point, I'm very excited about that aspect of inspiring the youth of the MENA region and the Arab world in general. You know, looking demographically, a huge youth demographic, a lot of young people, and, you know, underutilized young people, a lot of people with engineering degrees, a lot of people are very smart people, engineers, scientists, and stuff, who have been sort of put out a little bit of the global system in many ways, been a little bit deflected, you know, a lot of, you know, and these sorts of missions grant hope and motivation and to a lot of these people in these areas. So I'm very excited in that way as an inspirational mechanism for the young people of this region, because it gives them something bigger, better, broader, and some hope for the future to utilize their degrees. You know, so that's really exciting, and hopefully it also inspires the other the countries in the region as well to start thinking about how they can, you know, develop in the same mode. Hopefully the UAE is cutting a path and leading the way and showing other countries what we should be doing as a collective in the international system. You know, Israel, for example, does this, but they could do this more. You know, Saudis have a lot of money; they could do this. The Turks are rising. You know, Turkey's got a big space program already. Turkey could be something that, you know, they could really look at this and be inspired. There's a lot of energy in that region, and this could be very inspiring. So hopefully the UAE is cutting a path and inspiring the youth to change the dynamics and reset the vision for a larger vision. And it's a complicated vision.
Yeah, I would like to ask Ahmed. Ahmed, I missed one point from what you said when you were talking about developing countries. Did you put UAE in developing countries? Because actually, since its 43rd National Day in 2014, it was ranked among most developed country. So it's among the developed country, not developing countries. It's very important because it put itself, I mean, among the developed country with happy and contented citizens and other residents, as well as sustainable growth in many other fields, including economy, trade, investments, communication, information technology, tourism, infrastructures, and human social development. And I actually, when you said that, I went straight away to the thing to read. And this one was published in 2014 by 24/7 24/7 Emirates news. So it rose 7 places in terms of overall economic competitiveness over previous years.
Yes, well, actually, I was looking at this from the perspective of more spacefaring nations, because you know also that not all nations are able to make and to make satellites in-house, like in their countries, and even if we, for example, some countries in the Arab region or in Africa or even in Asia or South America, they are still making and manufacturing spacecrafts. They are still importing almost all of the components. So I am talking about that side, that from this side, from this side, and more from the industrial side. But not in general, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yes. You meant, yeah, I wanted to clarify, it's in terms of space programs and space sector in general. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask a question to us.
Yeah.
Okay, Ahmed, Andrzej Kotarski. I would like to ask you about significance of data collected on Mars for understanding of the weather which is in your region. It is also desert region as in Mars, and is there any connection in processes which are going on Mars and weather which is in Gulf region?
Yeah, that's a good point, because actually the UAE, they are working on development of a kind of village in the UAE to actually prepare for the colonization of Mars. And actually what they are working on is that so their principle is that the weather in the desert in the UAE is similar to the weather on Mars, which is also a huge desert with non-existing water resources. So one of their goals to go to explore Mars in general is actually to learn more to develop technologies for that harsh environment, and that can then be used here on Earth. And this actually, this is the spin-off of technology, which is historically a very important fact about space exploration, because what we see now of the technologies in many areas. For example, take the aeronautical sector. The safety that we reach today was thanks to the development, the technological spin-off from space, that we developed materials, we developed softwares, codes, lot of things, lot of technologies that we developed for space, and then we used for in other different areas, including aeronautics. So it's kind of catalyzer for the technological development. So it's the same thing. If you have a desert and you don't know how to explore it or how to use it for your economy, you can actually challenge yourself and do something more difficult to, for example, missions to Mars and building a colony on Mars. And they even announced that by 2117 they will have a colony on Mars. So if you do something challenging, then you can. It will be easier to do it in a less difficult and less harsh environment on Earth. So yeah, this is one of their perspectives, and their it's part of their strategy. That's true.
Philosophically, is Mars the first place we want to settle? I mean, is the settlement of Mars even an object? Or what about the moon? Why not? Why didn't they do something closer like the moon? Why? Because is the settlement of Mars even something that we want to do in the future? I mean, there's a lot of debate whether or not we even want to settle on Mars. Someone like Dr. Robert Zubrin, the Case for Mars, and Werner von Braun, people like this say Mars is the only option, you know, this is the only place we can go. But the more we discover, the more we're learning maybe we don't want to be there as much as we thought we did, and we want to just build our own, you know, maybe we want to do some industrial mining on the moon, and we want to build our own, you know, orbital geostationary settlements. Is Mars somewhere we even want to go?
For me, of course, I think the basic idea is that mankind want always more, because we already went to the moon. So now we want a new frontier to challenge ourselves. And we went to the moon in the end of the 60s and in the 70s. But now we need another more challenging target that will make the second age of space, like the second technological the development that like the one that happened for during the trips to the travels to the moon. So I think this is already the first thing, that also mankind want always to explore more and to go farther away from what he reached before. So that's the first thing. Well, the second thing is that also the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, so we are more likely to use Mars as the next, as second planet that we can, for example, heat and make it warmer, so we can then live on it. It's possible, at least. But for the moon, it's not something. Yeah, it's just a rock without really an atmosphere, and it's not the same. So yeah, I think this is already these are already two reasons from my perspective for going to Mars. Yeah.
What about in Poland? What do you think over there in Poland? Do you think that the Mars is a good objective for space settlement, or do you think we should be focusing on something else, the moon or our own geostationary orbit settlements?
I think that we must to set right priorities, because going with terraforming Mars or maybe colonization, it needs to be done with developed technology. For the moon, we can use, for the example, open life support system. For Mars, it is not option. We have to develop closed life support systems to sustain life of space explorers living on Mars and on Moon in the longer term. That is why we can treat in one of space strategies Moon as a stepping stone to the Mars colonization. Also, Moon is closer than Mars. We can reach Moon every time we need. Mars we can reach every 2 years if using our available now technology permits to. Yeah. Currently, we are using chemical rockets. That is why we are forced to use launch window, which open every 2 years by sending everything to Mars. And finishing my answer for this question is, it is a set of right priorities. We have to utilize Moon as a proving ground for some technologies. And also, we can using it as a stepping stone in our way to Mars.
Fantastic. And what do you think, Malik? Do you want to see? Do you think that Mars is a good objective for space settlement, or would you rather see people invest their energy into the moon or our own created settlements in geostationary orbit, for example?
You know, I advocate for multiplanetarism. And multiplanetarism, I came up with the word because it's always said multiplanetary species. So when I write about it now, and I came up with multiplanetarism, the idea our species become multiplanetary. So the whole idea of moving beyond or expanding or evolving beyond Earth boundaries is very impressive. And actually, why not the moon? Why it's Mars? Actually, Ahmed he answered that because the atmosphere or the planet Mars is the closest to our Earth, and with the what Andres said also, it's to make it habitable and to make it closer with the technology and the way how they are racing now to find ways to have settlements over there, because the money and energy that it's put by governments or states right now, it's not going for no reason. It's going for specific plans, and the moon is the stepping stone, as Andre say. Also, what I call the moon is the factory. You know, it's the new industrial part of outer space that is going to have the giant leap. It's why they are now racing also to the polar sides, and they are trying to not get China settle on that part, because you can if I'm wrong, Ahmed, because of the polar sides of the moon there's water, and water is very, very important actually for propellant, how to make propellant over there and get it to the next step to go to Mars. So actually the whole infrastructure need to be done through the moon, and that's why Artemis program is done by NASA, and NASA is calling through the Artemis Accord with other countries to partner to build the infrastructure on the moon, in order to have it the platform or the stepping stone to go to Mars. And actually, can you imagine Professor Kaku, what he said all the time? He said, and I assisted in one of his conferences in the IDEX, is the International Conference on Security and Defense in Abu Dhabi. What he said clearly, he said, well, do you know why a dinosaur got extinct? And he keeps on saying it all the time. And then he said, because they did not have space program. So the main point to go to Mars and to have not say plan B, because when we say plan B, always it's not well perceived, but to not have chances in order to have any catastrophe on Earth and we go extinct, or we no longer, I don't know, now we are panicking with COVID-19, and we don't know since it started till now when if the vaccine is going to be okay, if not, what's going to happen. People, they are fighting for masks. Some wearing masks divided nations, and things like that. So a lot of things going on here, and there is one thing that we need to understand is we need to have more probability in order to not be extinct on Earth. And what I say always, going beyond the boundaries of Earth, need to export a good mindset, and that's why I am transhumanist. And you are too, so.
Yeah, and that's a really good answer, and I appreciate that. You know, what do you think the likelihood is that in general, not because of this mission, maybe because of this mission, but we'll go around the room. But you know, one of the ideas on here on the Hope mission is to search for extraterrestrial life. It's not a new idea, but do you think eventually we're going to find microbes or some sort of civilization or something in space in the future? I mean, it's going to rock humanity. I mean, arguably, maybe they already found it. Maybe they're hiding it from us. Maybe Malik knows. I don't know. But we'll start with you, Malik. We'll go around the room. But let's talk about extraterrestrial life. It's a fun topic, you know, but Mars seems like a likely candidate when it comes to extraterrestrial life. Malik, what do you think?
Why are you asking me? You know me because I have a lot of crazy ideas. That's why, and that's why I always argue with Andre regarding these kind of ideas when we are chatting. So. I believe so. At the end of the day, if I don't have strong proof and evidence, I keep myself preserved. Okay, but I have read about. I'm sure that Ahmed know about this. There are two scientists. They said that there is a specific element on planet Mars that the origin of our it's what made our DNA close by, and it's saying that it couldn't our DNA couldn't be formed at the first at first on Earth. And what they say with this theory and scientific proof about it, I'm not sure what is it. They said that actually there is something hit Mars, and somehow there is because the life started on Mars, it ended up on Earth. I don't know about it. It's scientific, and I forget the name of it. And the science, I can share with you guys when I find it online. But Ahmed, have you heard about this theory?
No, actually, but I'm mainly following the, let's say, I'm not going too much with theories for now. I am because actually
scientific. Ahmed, scientific. I'm not a theory person.
Yeah, no, because actually for planet Mars, NASA was happy already to detect some earthquakes thanks to InSight. So that's already a huge achievement. So finding microbes or other particles, I think we will know the answer. I am an experimental guy, so with an experiment, and if we do an experiment and we have a result that proves that that thing exists, then that's for me the best way to make sure that we understand the thing. So for this, I think we have to wait for Mars 2020 Perseverance, which will be mainly focusing on finding life, actually signs of life on Mars, and they will even in partnership with the European Space Agency, they will bring back samples from Mars to study them here on Earth, and it will be a mission by 2026. So I think we will still need to wait a little bit for a few years to have more data about Mars, and if to have a proof or not of the existence of current or previous life. So yeah.
And Mr. Andres?
Okay, I would like to remind about the Alan Hills 80001 meteorite, which was found on Antarctica on December 27th in 1984 by US scientific meteorite hunters. And there were found fragments of organic materials and microscopic fossils, which would suggest that there were life on Mars during its warm and wet period. But for now, there are no ultimate answer if there were bacteria. As Ahmed said, two rovers, Rosalind Franklin, to be sent by ESA in 2022, and US Perseverance rover, which will be launched in few days after the HOPE mission. We hope that there will be indicators that there were life on Mars in bacteria form. But theory which Malak mentioned, it is called panspermia, and it is supported by meteorites of Martian found on Antarctica. and it indicates that a larger body impacted the Mars, and fragment of the impact, ejecta, from this impact were traveled from Mars to Earth and landed on Antarctica. And it is not theory, but it is one way of the possibility to seeding the life in the universe, using the comets, meteorites, and so on.
Yeah, I would like to add, because I found now they are saying a pair of researchers recently published an analysis of 3.5 billion years old soil samples from Mars containing chemical compounds called, and as you said, Andre, thiophenes that could potentially be organic. So they're not really sure, but they are trying to identify more, and that's why the race to Mars right now is to find out more, I guess, and to know also what is the if the origin of life is over there from Mars or not. If we have any, let's say, alien life outside of our planet, the pale blue dot. And it will be very, very helpful if they don't have exactly real proof and they're hiding it, like you said. So we will see.
So we have some information here on the launch, because the launch seems to be still going ahead. I mean, it seems to have been delayed in the short run, but I have just looking at their Twitter. I'm bringing up the Twitter on the screen now. That's the English, obviously. Preparations for the launch of the Hope probe, the first Arab interplanetary mission, have been completed in the ground station at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. So you can see there, people are working hard in the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, and it seems like it still is going ahead. So the weather in Japan must be good, and further up the Twitter feed there, they are actually talking on Arabic news, just as we are, about the mission. So I would expect the mission to be going ahead. But yes, this talk about extraterrestrial life is very interesting, because it sounds kind of cool, because we can talk about aliens and we can talk about other sentient life or other microbes, but really it points to the origins of who we are, if we do find anything, and it opens up a wide discussion about the origins of humanity, the origins of the human species, and our purpose in the universe as well. It would neither confirm or deny, but it would add, to the abundance of evidence of evolutionary life. It's very interesting, and we there's so much we just do not know about the vastness of space and the origins of our own being. So it might sound funny, but it's not a trivial matter at all, and I'm very excited to find out more about extraterrestrial life in the future, and I hope we do dig up evidence of some sort of microbial form or something, whatever it is, And the other thing is, if there is other life out there in the universe, and it's friendly, I mean, maybe we can use this to assist us and them in discovering more things about the universe. You never know. An intelligent species doesn't necessarily have to be hostile in any way. Just as we're becoming less and less hostile, and as we generate more and more cognitive awareness about who we are, and we build up systems, and you can see this in science fiction. There are variants of science fiction, like Star Trek, for example, where we go out there to explore for science, reason, and just explore for the sake of exploring, And there's obviously variants in there where they run into different life and have complicated issues with that other life, as any species would. but there's systems involved in that, and I think that this is something that we can really start to think about as we develop as a species. I don't think we have to be a warlike species, and I don't think other terrestrial other sentient life out there significantly advanced would think about this as well. I think the biggest challenges we have to face are challenges that we derive from our own learning process, climate change, for example. And using the Easter Islanders, I've been doing a lot of research and reading books on Easter Island, and the original assumptions about Easter Island are probably wrong, are very much in doubt now. Whereas you probably know the story of the Easter Islanders being that they built these big these big statues, and they cut down all the trees in order to build the statues and drag the statues to the positions that they're in, and they chopped down every tree, and that was the end. That theory seems to be waning very heavily. Actually, it doesn't seem to be a theory that's standing up to the test of time. It doesn't look like they had an ecological collapse based on their religious status. So using them as an example is not a good example anymore. But it doesn't mean that we aren't interfering with our own environment, and it doesn't mean that other sentient life.
Hello, Mr. Mahmoud. Please introduce yourself and your role during this mission.
Action happening
what was
here
the part
in the background
that you played a major role in?
So this is Dubai TV.
Good morning to everyone.
But this doesn't necessarily mean that other sentient life isn't faced with their own climate change problems and their own problems, climate manipulation problems and things of that nature. So that it is something to think about in that way. I will just we've got some action happening on the screen. Let's go over to
spacecraft AMM is in the launch pad. Hopefully you have a successful launch.
What is your feeling on this morning?
Yes, it's a very proud moment. It's very hard to experience.
Yes, they started live streaming the UAE Space Agency.
Fantastic. Well, that's really good. That means that's possible. Look, the weather looks good, as far as I can tell. I don't know if they look like they're in Japan. That doesn't look like a bad day to me. That looks like very clear weather, clear skies. Obviously, it's not just about what we can see, so it's about the whole way. But that's a good sign that this might go ahead. But obviously, I haven't been looking at the weather radar though. Have any of you people been looking at the weather radar in Japan?
Yeah, but when it comes to the weather as a risk, when it's assessed, it's beyond what we see. You get my point still.
Oh yeah, I mean in terms of upper atmosphere weather, yeah, of course.
Yes, exactly. So that is the issue, and actually, Andre can explain more about the weather as a risk for the launch activity. So it's as it's his domain.
Okay, launch is always as a little gambling, because there are many factors which can cause for calling off the launch in last minute. There are many examples which which launch was called off because the weather in upper atmosphere. In upper atmosphere, we have strong winds called jet stream, and it sometimes makes problems with putting the launch vehicle through the upper atmosphere, which could be disastrous for it. That is why always before the launch there is made sounding of the atmosphere using the balloons, and data gathered during this sounding gives the answer for the launch authority to proceed with launch to go or not go. When we can recall a few Starlink launches, there always was problem with weather, which caused the putting the launch for the next few days. It is easy for launches which are conducted for low Earth orbit, but for the Hope mission, if we add the launch window which opens every 2 years to Mars, we have very difficult equation when we get the positive answer for all things: weather, launch vehicle, probe, and jet stream in upper atmosphere.
What do you have a diagnosis on what might be a major delay cause? Is it usually upper atmosphere, lower atmosphere?
It is not only the one reason that the jet stream causes the calling of the launch. There will be a glitch in software. There will be in problem with fuel installation, and there will maybe problem with the payload itself. In one mission, which was planned for one of the planets of the solar system, a problem caused by one instrument provided by CNES Space Agency caused to call it off the mission, and it was pushed for few years later to be launched. And it is a few potential risks which can cause that launch will be not in time. Weather, as we could see on the example of the Hope mission, was this decisive factor for launching it in time. But we have to be humble for the nature and respect that we are not always the deciding factor about all things. Weather can cross our way.
That's really interesting. Just quickly, we'll go to this
the two
stream here.
Reach their closest point every 2 years.
Okay, what we can see is the Earth and
During
Mars.
The probe will travel 490
And our prelegam is describing the Hope mission. We can see the H2 vehicle probe deployment and when it enters into interplanetary trajectory.
Absolutely. So this is a really exciting graphic here, because you've only got a limited time, a small amount of time with Mars missions, right? You can go once every 2 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that is caused, as I said, by launch window, because alignment of planets allows for sending the payloads to the Mars with low energy trajectory, which is measured by specific units called C3. It is a quadrat of the axis of the velocity, and when we have the unfamiliar alignment of the planet, we cannot send any payload to the Mars using our current technology. That is, I'm meaning about chemical rockets.
Do you think, we've been lucky with the Mars rover missions to the United States, where the technology has survived and exceeded expectations? You remember, the Mars rovers were supposed to only be a few months, and they've been up there for years. Do you expect the same thing with the satellites, or are the satellites you know, have a trajectory where they're going to burn up in the atmosphere?
The calculations of the launch arrival for the every interplanetary mission is very challenging indeed, because you had to. It is like you are aiming from the gun, and you are trying to hit very small target, which is also moving, and you are also moving. Calculations to calculate the right launch window and arrival opportunity are very challenging. Also, when we see on the trajectories and planetary orbits, they are not alignment in one plane. They are always set few degrees from the plane, and it complicates very calculations of the sending space probes to the Mars, and not only for Mars, for other planets too.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah, actually, what I also understood from your question is that you are talking also about the extendable mission lifetime in orbit or on the surface of Mars, which is something that happens very is usually happening. For example, with Mars Express, it was also for a few years that they expected to have the mission running and the mission operational around Mars. But actually then it is until now operational, and we are still, and it is since 2004 we are doing experiments with that mission, and we are still using it in 2020. So yeah, in general, actually what happens is that these satellites, they spend huge money on them. It's hundreds of millions of dollars for only one probe, and they actually have redundant subsystems. So, for example, if you see even in some animations, you see the propulsion system. You always see 3 motors that are actually turned on, and 1/4 motor that is not working. And actually, that one is a redundant one. If you lose one of the 3 motors, you will have the 4th one that will replace them. So actually this help, they have sometimes even 3 and 4 redundant subsystems for electronic subsystems, communication subsystems. If you lose any electronic part, especially electronics, because, for example, of radiation accumulations or because of any other technical reason, you will always have a second backup circuit or component or subsystem that will help extend the mission. So that's why in general what they do is that in the first years they have the primary mission, and then the scientists also the scientists they make proposals for secondary missions during when they will extend the lifetime of the probe, and that's also so because scientists in general, they wait for maybe sometimes for all their lives to have that probe around Mars or around Venus or around Jupiter. So that's why they try to provide them the opportunity to do more science experiments around the planet or around the celestial body. So yeah.
I would like. Sorry. Yes. Still, go ahead.
No, go, Malik, please.
The floor is yours. It's okay.
No, Malik, go.
Okay. I just wanted to add the huge. Let's say application of space insurers, because all these missions wouldn't happen really, and the space industry and space sector without having the hero behind the scene, behind the curtain. This hero is the space insurer. very, very important because most of the mission and the new space especially is relying upon space insurance. So it is a niche market. It's totally different than the other kind of insurers and insurance industry. Even with the professional insurer, when they say that the space insurance is one of its kind, and they can assert a certain governance and so on, because they are in the position to do so, because the space industry and the way how it's developed right now, it wouldn't happen as it is happening without this hero in the picture. So every space activity that it's we know all that it is risky and risky activity. The environment, space environment is risky by nature. So investment wouldn't be happening without space insurance. Usually they don't really announce the policy, and they don't announce, especially in missions like this, who's the insurer and who's behind, if it was insured or it's or not. I'm not sure, because the information is not there to the public. I have some special also practitioners that they wanted to see space policy and it's the insurance policy, and that professor that I know very well, she tried so hard that she couldn't get existent one. But talking about space insurance, like different phases of the space activity can be insured. Maybe all of it, maybe just a part of it, maybe it can be to a different insurer because they don't want to bear the risk of the whole space activity, starting from the pre-launch phase, starting from the manufacturing phase actually, and the space insurer or the broker starts getting his input from early stages when it's about satellite manufacturing or a rocket manufacturing. So, and it goes to the pre-launch phase. The space insurer may cover the transportation of the space vehicle, also the damages to the launch site during the satellite testing, fueling, encapsulating when we're talking about a satellite. We have also it could cover the engine test phase, the launch phase, the launch replacement, because there is to cover the damages that occurred during the launch or attempt to launch, the ascent, deployment, and so on. Also the satellite in orbit insurance. It can be through the whole lifetime of satellite also. We have also third-part liability insurance, which is very, very important, and it's a must insurance that you need to fulfill when you have when you want to have your launching permission or the space activity permission from the governmental entity who's in charge of that. So there is a business risk, there's political risk coverage also. So I wanted to mention that because it's very, very important. A lot of people, they don't know really the input of the space insurer. It is very, very important. And without it, new space, and especially the private actors, now we're talking about a Mars mission, but I went to the other side of the new space. I want to mention also that private actors input right now to get let's say the new space era going wouldn't happen without space insurer.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. You know, there's a lot of components, the space insurer being one of those components, and a very vital component. And it's only going to be something, you know, Malik, your skills as in the legal area are only in demand, growing demand day by day by day by day, because this is an expanding field, and there is only a limited number of people on the planet who understand what you do. And I know sometimes, Malik, you can get frustrated with people not really understanding what you do. It's because nobody does what you do. You know, you're a special person. You're a very talented, skilled, special person in a growing, booming field at the early early end of a growing, booming field. You know, one of the things, Malik, is when we go to Mars or we go up into space and we have space settlements, we're going to be running into legal issues all the way. Because the first couple of people, the first couple of ships, I can be sure are not going to be. There's going to be no lawyers on those ships. It's going to be hard scientists, survivalists, people who are conditioned and skilled and technical in their survivability. You know, Ernest Shackleton or the people who survive these amazing feats on Earth. You know, they weren't lawyers, they were survivalists, they were skilled technicians. But, you know, as we expand and as tours get longer, 5 months is a long time in politics, but imagine living up there 1, 2, 3 years on the moon. Somebody might pass away. You have to do legal things in that time. On a whole settlement, if it's a one-way mission to Mars, which is what is coming up, and people pass away, there's legal issues there, and nobody, I can assure you, nobody's going to be a lawyer or a legal practitioner in these first couple of shipments of colonists, of settlers and explorers. So you know, this is things to buffer against for the future. We're gonna run into legal issues. We're gonna run into them really quickly. You said on my show, we already had a space crime by a U.S. woman. That's opening the box right there. So, you know, so this is a huge issue. It's a huge area. But you're talking about insurance down here on Earth, and you know, insurance is a complicated issue anyway. It's based on you know, trying to financially secure people against failure, and a lot of these ventures, a lot of the very hard-edged ventures, such as this, the science-only ventures that might not have any return, they have to be implemented by governments. They have to be implemented by states and entities that don't really have a profit motive, that only might have a future profit motive and profit potential. If you're a corporation, i.e., if you're some sort of profit engineered entity, you've got a very short time. You've got a very short perception of time. You've got to either make money or not. So it's a very, very important issue you bring up there, Malik, on the insurance side, and you know, it's only a booming field. And you're at the very start of a very young longevity. There's a longevity in what you're doing, Malik, and we really appreciate your comments there.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to comment on a lawyer's need when we have settlement over there. I think that the existing set of rules are not really the proper one for to implement over there, because legal principles and the practice, they are, let's say, an outcome of specific culture, of specific reality. So it's totally different. The risky space environment over there, the way how things should be done over there, resources need to be exploited or used over there. I don't think we can implement the same. It needs to have specific rules and specific principles, and especially what I try to, or I advocate is to implement codes of conducts and ethics. And a lot of people, they say ethic is it's not really the same everywhere or whatever, but we are in globalized society right now due to ICT, information communication technologies, and we agree on specific ethics and principles and morals and rules, and it is very important that they are like the end of those principles and morals, the betterment of humanity, and to have specific codes of conduct when we make exploration, when we have scientific like in science, in technology and everything, we agree about certain rules that we need to implement everywhere, because we know very well that what is ethical and what is not ethical. This is what I think the most important thing, more than just having, the idea of implementing the same laws and principles and everything that we have on Earth. We need to think above what we have right now and beyond, because actually we find out even the economic principles, they are not really up to our needs right now. So
absolutely. What do you guys say over there about legal issues? I mean, I remember Colombia. We've never lost a person, humans, and no nation has never lost a person in space. That hasn't happened yet, for example. No one's died in space yet, but it's inevitable that eventually someday somebody will die in space. And what happens on that front? Who owns the territory? Who's responsible for that? What happens after they're dead? What happens to their own burial rights and etc.? These are all big questions. These are legal questions as well. It's big. I mean, you're talking about imposing extrajudicial ideas that we've created out there in space, and it's a huge issue. What do you guys think?
Actually, for the liability issue, if there is liability in the situation, we have set of rules of liabilities, and the Liability Convention under the United Nations Liability Convention and the Outer Space Treaties articles on liabilities. But there are issues with it because states are liable for their national national action, but responsibility, liability regime, and it's long story because there are voids over there. And when it comes to crimes, criminal activities, and it's from people coming from different states and so on, the answer is still not satisfying about what's going to happen. First of all, there are void, and there are no precedents in order to go back to the case law. So this issue can be a full, let's say, a full Archer report show. So, but there are issues over there, and they need to be solved. And even Andre talked to me before about the delimitation between the airspace and outer space. There are issues with it because internationally the issue is not solved yet. They don't agree exactly, and we have the Bottega Convention. These countries, parties to this convention, actually they even went on their own rules about the delimitation because they claim their jurisdiction, national jurisdiction, up to the geostationary orbits, which is different than the rest of the countries who they said the Kármán line it is. Some scholars, they say the Kármán line has become agreed upon the nation, but it's not true because also there's discrepancy. Some they said 80 and the other one they say 100 above the what you call it, the sea line. So it's still, because when we look at it on a legal side, we look at it, liability under the air law is totally different than the space law. And when there is private of law conflicts, so which one is going to be applied? And for now, we don't have accidents to have this liability issue coming from between the airspace law and the and the space law. So still we have going on, and there are some webinars right now that I will share on my Facebook regarding the delimitation issue, because also United Nations COPIUS, they are working still on their committee, the legal committee on or subcommittee on this issue still, because it's not unified. And when it's not unified, we have issues coming from two different space objects. We call it under the international law, so spacecrafts. And it can happen a problem, and we need to apply the international law rules, and we're going to have conflicts of law rules over there between the two regimes, and it's a problem.
Absolutely. What do you think, Ahmed, about the legal issues involving space? You're a science guy, so science is very collaborative. It's a collaborative enterprise where we share our knowledge and share our research, and you build off each other. What about the legal issues? Are you concerned that there's going to be growing legal issues in space as we commercialize space, as we advance with our states out there, as human involvement in space becomes more pronounced?
Yes. Actually, I will give you one legal issue that we faced actually when I was working with on a project with the European Space Agency. Actually, it was with Mars Express, which is the first European orbiter that reached planet Mars successfully, of course. So what happened is that we had one instrument on board the spacecraft, and it actually sent back data to Earth, but to the science team, to the science team of that instrument. And the issue is that there is an agreement in general that you have to keep the data for 6 months for you, and then you have to release the data for the other scientists. And what happens is that the data took 2 or 3 years being unreleased. So scientists were just waiting. So there was only one team in the world working on that data, and they didn't publish the data to all the other scientists, and this made a lot of issues between the space agency and the team that was working on this, and they had even conflicts actually between the scientific team from the European Space Agency and the scientific team from this institute. So actually, then when they released the data, they didn't release their work. So they said, okay, they just released very few of their work. So we until now we don't have in the archives of ESA the processed data. We still have the raw data, so the data like we just receive it from the spacecraft without pre-processing, post-processing that is generally required for any scientist to make use of that data. So this is actually what I am working on with the European Space Agency to solve this issue, which is basically legal, because you see what I mean. So of course it exists actually even in the science field, especially in this highly competitive field between Europe and USA, or between inside Europe or inside USA. These things happen a lot. There are even when the lander also of the European Space Agency crashed on Mars. Actually, the NASA orbiter was going through the same area, and they took photos of the lander during the crash, and they actually they actually talked to ESA, and they asked them to publicly release the fact that they crashed before NASA publishes the photos. So it was very funny actually that this happened between two big space agencies, and you see then some channels and you see that in general Americans were kind of making fun of the Europeans after the crash of their first attempt to land. And yeah, so this is another thing that that happened also in space, and I'm talking about real things. There is also, I worked actually, my master thesis was at the German Space Agency, and actually I had the chance to live with the scientists during the run of a real space mission, which was Hayabusa 2. Space mission that actually reached the asteroid Ryugu in 2018. So I had my master thesis just before the probe reaches the asteroid, and I attended actually one of the most important meetings of the team. It was the French team, the Japanese, and the German team. So they were actually talking and discussing how they will, because they were going to launch a lander, release a lander that will land on the surface of the asteroid, and then they have to launch an explosive on the surface of the asteroid. So there were a lot of issues with this, because there are some regulations about what you can do in space using explosives, etc. And also, it's a German, French, Japanese mission. So the Japanese and the German are still actually have agreements from even the World War about limitation in using of armament, etc. So there were a lot of issues like this during the mission, and actually it was I'm not going to say they were fighting, but they were really discussing in a very serious way how to do this, and how to make it properly, and how to respect the regulations, and how to get involved also the US, etc. So there are actually a lot of legal issues that can happen, especially when you go explore somewhere that no one went there. So this is very important. Of course, also with the commercialization, you know that Malek, of course, I'm sure that she can give more information about the fifth law, which the fifth decree in the space law that is actually the Moon Decree, Malek. So actually, that was apparently a problem for the countries, and we see that now we have Luxembourg and the USA, that those two countries are made the law, I think, to regularize the space mining. And one of the issues that I think that was, if I am not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Malek, it was about when you bring materials from an asteroid, all the citizens of the world also have the right to have some from your incomes percentage, let's say. So yeah, this is something, as far as I understood, is legal issue that is currently being debated between countries, and a lot of models and a lot of different types of solutions exist. So yeah, and this will still continue, especially in space mining, because it's a really new area, and it's really a growing area. So yeah.
And how about in Poland, Mr. Andres? What do you think about emerging legal issues? We've heard lots of different things now from Malek and from Mr. Ahmed. Everything from science collaboration to space mining. What would you say, if you're still here? I think he's gone. You're muted,
yeah,
Malek.
The image is like this since long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm
hello.
here.
He's back.
Okay. Okay. I'm back. I just muted to not interrupt for the interlocutors' speeches. Okay. We have Outer Space Treaty, which regulates outer space activities. We have liability conventions about liability on space conducted by various governments and intergovernmental organizations. We have astronaut rescue
agreement. We have also registration convention, and also we have Moon Treaty, which is, in my opinion, currently dead because there are no major space power who signed it and ratified it. Moon Treaty proposed the model of the exploration of the moon, which was not satisfying for major space powers. That is why they were not signing it. Artemis Accords announced this year as a try to find the way to reconcile interest of from economical side, law side, and political side. It is a difficult, and I think, and I believe that in mutual cooperation of all sides, we'll find the satisfying all side solutions, because all outer space treaties which are lying current foundation in space law are not fit in our current times. That is my opinion. Hello, hello.
Yes, we are here, but I don't know where still.
Sorry about that.
You're back. Yeah, I would like to add about the Moon Treaty issue. There's no problem in that, Ahmed, because I explained before. The Moon Treaty is called the failed treaty. Out of all the world order, which the Outer Space Treaty, I think we have 194, if I'm not mistaken, parties to the treaty. The Moon Treaty, we have 18 or 19. So it is called the failed treaty because like the main spacefaring countries are not signing the Moon Treaty from the beginning. It had a lot of restriction in terms of exploration and use of outer space, and they were not keen to sign it, especially United States. And we know very well in international treaties, when United States doesn't sign and step forward, all the countries in the back, they wouldn't do it. And that's what happened with the GATT when before the WTO was formed, and when the Bretton Woods economic order was made. United States was not keen to step in, and it took a long time for the rest of the countries to embrace that economic order, which is the GATT. Now I go back to the main rules under the international space treaties, and I explain one more time. It's the international space treaties that are the main lex specialis, means like the law governing space activities, which they are specialized in that. And we have other treaties and other soft laws and other laws they are completing. But the basis is the Outer Space Treaty, which is the 1967, and it has other names. We have the Rescue or Astronaut Agreement. We have the Liability Convention, and we have the Registration Convention, and we have the Moon Agreement. Moon Agreement, the Outer Space Treaty set that outer space is open jurisdiction for all nations, for all countries. No one can have specific jurisdiction on outer space. Only they have the right to control their national activities in order to be sure that their responsibility and obligation under the international space treaties and the Outer Space Treaty is applied. To reduce their liability also, because they are liable for all their national activities in case of any harm caused by their space activities. And there are special criterion to set that responsibility and liability, because they have two regimes under international law.
Well, you know what I found philosophically speaking about these treaties is kind of interesting, because I read a lot of these different treaties in our preparation for an arts report that I did with Malik, and I was thinking, if I was an emerging state, if I was the UAE, if I was Turkey, if I was Poland, if I was China, if I was South Africa, if I was Brazil, if I was someone that had an emerging space or had space ambitions, I would sign up to these treaties regardless of whether the United States signed up or not, because in a lot of these treaties there's a normalization of the laws, but there's also a lot of collaboration involved in and sharing and data sharing and outsourcing of storage, and a lot less costs involved in legal policy and all of these things. I liked a lot of these laws if I was an emerging state. I can see why, Malik, on your point of the United States not going along with this, it being a leader and being an independent actor, sort of making its own rules. But I can see why these laws are attractive, or should be attractive, for emerging spacefaring nations, especially if you're behind, because there's a lot of a collaboration automatically built into a lot of these treaties, where you share data, share information, share scientific research, share experiences of legal code. You know, there is a lot embedded in these treaties which actually assist your country in leapfrogging your own development, and you can collaborate and enhance everybody's development at once. If the United States wants to be an independent actor and go off and do its own thing, I mean, that's its prerogative. It's the superpower at this point in time. It can do that. It might suffer for that in the long run. But if I was an emerging country, for example, Australia, if we ever got an independent space agency, which we're slowly getting, we piggyback off the United States, obviously, but we do have an independent space agency evolving, and we could potentially get launch capacity in line with the United States because of commercial application. I would want to see Australia sign up to more of these agreements to piggyback off and collaborate with emerging space states.
I agree with what you said. That's the main principles. They are based on peaceful use of outer space. I'm talking about the Outer Space Treaty, which it laid down the main principle of use of outer space. So the Outer Space Treaties, it laid down these rules, and actually a lot of articles of Outer Space Treaties that they were not really explained, they were extracted and used to make the other treaties. For example, the one on registration of space objects, we had articles on that of the Outer Space Treaty, and it was extracted and elaborated in the registration convention. Now we talk about Article 2 of the Outer Space Treaty. It imposes restriction on the freedom of use of outer space in terms of countries. They cannot claim any right of property over territories on outer space and celestial body. So this one, it prevented a national or states, countries, to claim the right of properties, which can be claimed in different ways under international law. It can be made through occupation, discovery, accession, and aggression. And this was clear, set there. But there is a gap. It did not say if private actors or national of the countries can acquire right of properties. So it was a loophole there. The loophole was fixed with the Moon Agreement, and Moon Agreement said clearly that private actors and states and whatever, they couldn't. And the Moon Agreement also treated the issue of contamination and other issues that they were not covered in the things. So a country like United States that could see that it could be taken in the corner, not to own and not to get its private actors own, and they have long-term
Malik, you've just popped out.
Okay, we have a glitch.
Yeah, she's just glitched a bit. What about in Poland there? How do you reconcile the Polish space ambitions vs the European space ambitions, the space agency? Is there firm collaboration there between Poland and the EU? What goes on there in Europe?
Okay, in Europe we can indicate that Poland follows the main direction of the European space policy set by European Union, because we are part of the European Union. Also, we are going along the policy lines of European Space Agency, because we are part of the European Space Agency. And the third part of it is national space program, which is under development, and we are getting all synergy from all of them. That is a solution. That is a solution we are applying in Poland. Collaboration with space agencies and international partners, because a part of ESA we are collaborating with Russian Space Agency. Also, we are developing a cooperation agreement with NASA, for which letter of intention was signed last year. And in Poland we have a Polish Space Agency, like in UAE, and our space research center, like Muhammad Ben Rashid Space Center. We have very similarities, but because we are part of the European Space Agency, we are emphasizing the role of international cooperation with European partners.
That's really interesting, because Poland is very much at the crossroads of a lot of different intersections there, working closely with the Russians, working with the Europeans, working with the United States, and semi-independently with other national groups around the world. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but I would like to emphasize that cooperation with scientists with various countries was easier than political ones. That is why we have good relations with many scientific institutions over the world, and that is why we are focusing on peaceful cooperation in space exploration and also in space application, in use them for our economical needs, like Copernicus program or Galileo programs.
Very, very interesting. Malik, you just dropped out there at the end of what you were saying before. Did you want to finish your thought? Or
Yeah, no, I just wanted to finish by saying because when you are having plans and long-term plans to make mining or to have your own nationals to be involved in commercial activities, you wouldn't sign the Moon Agreement. So the Moon Agreement, there are a lot of articles that they are very interesting in terms of the way how the contamination and of course at that time the space debris wasn't in mind at that time, because space wasn't really full of junk like now, space debris. So it is that's why the Moon Agreement was called the Fail Agreement. And now, as we see that with the Artemis Accords, new wave of agreements and a new wave of let's say of diplomacy is going to be shaped. And I've seen the principles of the Accord program or the Accord agreements. The principles, they are very, very nice, and they are about sustainability and about also cooperation and sharing scientific exploration outcomes and so on, and also investment perspective. It has a investment perspective and the way how to move forward with the project.
Mr. Ahmed, what country are you in right there again? Sorry, I forgot.
He is in Belgium.
Right, so that'd be the European Union, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And what do you see from the European Union? Your circumstance there in Belgium is not as complicated as Poland. Poland has a lot of dynamism, as you can see. It works and collaborates with the European Union on a multinational level, but also semi-independently. What do you see there from Belgium?
Yeah, well, Belgium is the heart of Europe, so we are the center of Europe. So we have the European Commission, we have the European Parliament here in Brussels. We are actually the center of Europe, and it's a country with a lot of huge diversity. Malek also actually,
as Nigel Farage would say, it's pretty much not a non-country. Sorry, it's just a little joke.
It's not annoying at all, because I personally really enjoy living in Belgium. It's even for me one of the best European countries where we can actually live, and we have personally I have a lot of support from the Belgian scientists, the Belgian engineers. I worked in a private company here, and I had a lot of support from the Royal Observatory of Belgium. I am working now with the European Space Agency through the Royal Observatory of Belgium. So they actually support you when you come with a dream to actually reach the stars and to work on innovative projects. And if you are ambitious about space, they will help you actually. Yeah, so but I am from Tunisia. I am living in Belgium, but I am from Tunisia, and I'm following a lot what is happening in Tunisia. We are trying also to make a Tunisian space sector in partnership with local actors, local authorities there, and also private and public institutions. So to go back to the UAE, because maybe something is important to mention here is that the UAE launched and created the Arab Space Cooperation Group, which actually has now 14 countries, including Tunisia, and it's led actually by the UAE Space Agency. So this is kind of the Arab Space Agency. It's kind of the beginning and the first break of the Arab Space Agency. And I think and I expect to have that it will be a very important structure in the coming years in the region. So yes, that's why I think now it's also less around 17 minutes before the lunch. So yeah, but personally, I'm very excited now. Sorry, I start to look at the clock, and I am really expecting this launch. So I hope it will be very successful, because they worked for 6 years on it. It's a huge effort working on something for 6 years. It's just huge. And
that's an extremely short time period if you really think about it. 6 years to get this project up and running. All the technical development, all the collaboration, all of the innovation, all of the money, the effort, the energy, national effort. It's very exciting. As you can see in the background there in our little box, things are starting to move. We are getting some live feed now from the actual launch pad of the rocket in Japan. So that's very exciting. It is starting to move. 17 minutes. But let's talk about quickly the African experience. You said Tunisia. Do you know anything more broadly about African space policy? Do you think Ethiopia might be opening up the way to some sort of space policy? South Africa, obviously, having a little bit. Egypt. Toe in there. Do you think the UAE might set itself up as a leader in the African space sector? Let's talk Africa for a second. Start with you, Mr. Ahmed, and we'll go around quickly on Africa. What's going on in Africa?
The most important thing is that in 2019 the African Union announced the creation of the African Space Agency, which is something very important. And there had countries that debated for, and there was a competition for the country that will host the headquarters. And at the end, it was so between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. And at the end, Egypt won the race, and it will be hosted by Egypt. Actually, yes, Egypt is one of the most developed countries on the African scale, let's say. But of course, if we make some ranking, I think the best one is South Africa. It's far away compared to the other African countries. It's even compared to a lot of European countries and Asian countries in terms of technology maturation and their technological development in the space sector. There is also Nigeria that is also investing a lot in the space sector the last years. There is also Ethiopia and. Ethiopia, they launched a satellite recently. There was even Sudan that launched satellite. There is there is Rwanda also that is getting into the space sector, and actually now on the African scale, it's more difficult than the Arab scale, because personally I have more experience with the Arab region, and I'm supporting the Arab Space Cooperation Group, and I see that it's easier to work together because we share a lot of culture, a lot of the same language. We share a lot of things, but on the African scale, for instance, it is still, I see it going slowly compared to what is going on the Arab scale. But I think that it will be better with time. But it needs really some time. It needs a leader also, because because in the Arab region we have the UAE, that finally we have a leader that actually talked to all the other countries and convinced them that we have to work together on space. In Africa, we still don't have that country that come and get all the countries together and convince them to invest in space. So this is also, in Africa, there is a huge difference between countries. We have 55 countries, but we have countries that are the poorest in the world, which is something also that is an issue. So we cannot also have the same model like what we can do with the Arab countries, because we have really to target applications that that can have positive impacts on the socio-economic development. This is much more important than going to Mars or going to the moon, especially in Africa. And the citizens will never allow for making and setting budget for space exploration. But if you tell them and if you convince them that using space, you can have better agricultural productivity. You improve the water management, etc. That will be something possible in Africa. So we are still in the beginning in Africa, and but I expect that it will grow in the next years.
I was actually thinking about that with this mission here, the Hope mission. Hope, it's a good name for this mission. You know, it's a climate satellite, and could this be the first, you know, toe in to get African and Arab climate satellites into space in an industrial level to start to project climate change here on Earth? Africa is not going to be, as a continent, there are huge areas in Africa that are at climate risk, but the Arab world is definitely at climate risk in terms of a drying process. We know in Saudi Arabia, we know in UAE, we know in other places that the sand is swallowing up agriculturally productive land. Israel as well being eaten away. Do you think this is a toe in to get climate satellites up, you know, to race against climate change?
Personally, I think that it's not with this kind of satellites that we can do something very productive and very cost efficient. I think we would better go for CubeSats and small sats instead of big satellites like this for weather for weather monitoring and climate change and tackling climate change issues. So I think that it's possible. Of course, it will open the way, but we have to put in mind that keep in mind that this probe is going to Mars, and a huge part of it is the part that contains the fuel. So it's 800 kilograms of hydrogen to go to Mars. So it's not the same case when you have a satellite around the Earth. So you can reduce the size, you can reduce the cost, and this can then be affordable by African and Arab nations, then of course to monitor the climate change. But the climate change affects all the world, so it's really something that I think we cannot regionalize. We always have to talk, from my point of view, about climate change as a global issue, so we have the support from everyone on this earth, whatever the difference in levels of effectiveness and of impact on the countries. So yeah, it can give them the idea, but I think with the more successful missions in the CubeSats and in the new space that Malek talked a lot about, I think that can sensitize more the decision makers than these type of missions that are actually cost hundreds of millions of dollars. This will be important to encourage youth, but not to encourage decision makers to invest in space. This is my point of view.
I would add about on us African space technologies or African space capabilities, because I worked on it and I have some data ready. So it is, when we look at the space sector or space capability in Africa, it's still not up to the level, but they are racing right now, and they are trying to caught in this new space race because of what is going on right now, that developing countries, they are entering into the space new space era with the reduction of the economic barriers, with off-the-shelf technologies, and off-the-shelf technologies. Last time I say it and they tell me don't say it, but I say it because this is what we call it economically, and this is what is said in the literature. And like I said, I don't say anything coming from newspaper or so on. I go and make my own research. So to recap, the South Africa was the first launching country locally designed and manufactured miniaturized satellite called SunSat in a NASA-sponsored launch in 1999. Then Nigeria, since then, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and few more have joined the African Satellite Owners Club, what they call it, with the assistance of powerful space countries, along with Morocco, Algeria, and Egypt. And China is playing a very important role in supporting African countries, and that's how it's been doing. China is presence in Africa is very strong. Then we have more than 24 African satellites are already orbiting on Earth, with almost half of them launched since 2017. So since 2017, we see that they are accelerating their activities. So Africa has a space market that is characterized with a population of approximately 900 million people spread over 30.3 million kilometer square. The problem with that, it's still their capability in terms of ICT, information communication technologies, are not very strong and not covering much. So we have very limited financial capital and weak industrial sector, which they are posing a long-term sustainability of space initiative. Poor internet connectivity and unreliable electrical power limits the ability of host appropriate space infrastructure. Very, very important. Also, we have safety and security concerns relating to both equipment and personal ground-based space-related infrastructure, and there is no enough access to education for space, scientific and technical expertise. So human capital is not appropriate, and not all African countries, they have the same technical readiness level. So still, we are behind the proper level that needs to be happening at 2020. So I wrap up there, and we are close to the launch, I think.
Yeah, we've got 3 minutes to launch. Mr. Andres in Poland, anything else you wanted to say quickly on Africa? And then are you excited for this launch? We've got about 3 minutes to go.
Yes, I'm always admiring developing countries which are choosing own way to go to space, and I would like to wish them good luck in the space endeavors. Especially, I'm tracking the transmission from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries channel, and I think this launch today will be very significant for all African countries in the common endeavor. That is my point.
Yes, because Emirates will boost the let's say, because it has ripple effect. Emirates is Middle Eastern country, is a GCC country, will boost through the Arabic cooperation, the Arabic African countries, and from there the ripple effect will be going through Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and so on. And that's what we wish for Tunisia, is to have space agency and to have space program and to have its own satellites and CubeSats, because we have amazing, incredible space enthusiastic people, that engineers, and even we have space medicine experts that we are getting together in order to build this sector.
So I did bring up a tweet just a few minutes ago from the official Emirates mission Twitter, and they said they have been confirmed and they will be launching. So with no further delay, I think I will bring up a clock on the screen now. I think we have about 1:40 to go. So this is very exciting. We are counting down now. This is a very exciting day for humanity, and it's a very exciting day for the UAE. I've been looking forward to this very much, and we wish them all the best. We don't want to see any explosions or fireworks. We want to see a nice, clean launch. The Japanese are very good at this sort of thing, and we want to see that probe, that satellite, heading off to Mars and doing its research on Mars. This will be very exciting. So just to remind people, what we are doing here today is we are watching the UAE launch a satellite to Mars to do research.
Knowing that 34% of those who built the satellite and the probe are women, so this is also another number that is really, we are all proud of it, because in general in engineering we don't have a lot of women. So having all these women working on this important project, it's really very something very that makes me very proud of them.
Absolutely, we need more women in STEM subjects. This is very exciting. Here, we'll just quickly go over. 10 seconds left.
Now with the whole team, they've been building up to this, they've been training for this, waiting for this moment, and we're just 1 minute away from the launch. So what would you like to say to people watching at home as we prepare for this moment?
Well, really, you know, fingers crossed, but, you know, I always, you know, you have to be optimistic.
So excited.
You know? To work in this field, you have to be optimistic. Anything could happen.
We're going to have to cut you there. Countdown beginning at any moment.
Okay, we have liftoff. Yes.
We have a liftoff with HCA vehicle number 42 from JAXA Communication Space Center at 6:58:14 a.m. on July 20, 2020.
打ち上げ以降、ロケットの完成は西野発射管制塔から江崎総合司令塔に引き継がれています。
Following liftoff, the operation control of the launch vehicle has been switched from the workhouse to the launch control center.
Okay, we have seen breaking the sound barrier by rocket.
The HC is now flying above Pacific Ocean.
ロケットは正常に飛行中であり、種子島の地上局は正常にロケットの追尾を行っています。
The HC flight is on course, and the Taneshima station is tracking the launch vehicle very well.
80、81、82、83、80、86、87、88、89、90。
SLBA 燃焼終了。
The SLBs have burned out.
110、
SRBA 分離。
SRBA separation.
14、15、16、17、18、19、120。
第1段エンジンの燃焼は正常。制御系飛行経路も正常です。ロケットは順調に飛行を続けており、現在の高度は約 95km、秒速約 1.5km です。
The combustion in the first stage engine, attitude control, and trajectory are all nominal. The HC flight is on course.
So far,
Current
so good.
To about 55 km.
Yes.
Rest is approximately
Separation.
1.5 km per sec.
It's getting very small. No explosions.
Okay.
Where you have that
What a
vibration.
very special moment. It was doubly interesting for you watch the rocket.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we've had the launch, and it seems to be going well so far. And hopefully we'll get some cameras, or they've got some cameras there set up that we can see on board the rocket. It's a long way into space. It's not a 1 minute journey. It's about 6 or 7 minutes, isn't it?
Okay, we will have payload fairing separation according to the simulation shown on Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Okay, fairing separated.
Fantastic.
And we have confirmation.
Very special moment there for the UAE, and a very special moment for all of the people who've put in effort and energy in order to get this this satellite up there in a record time, 6 years. It's quick. It's quick. It shows you how fast we really can move when we want to move. And I'm glad that they'll be able to get it up there before their 50th anniversary. It looks like we're on track to get that in the air and get it over there for the UAE birthday next year.
Okay.
Beautiful launch. Very nice. Every time I see one, it's like little girl. First time I see my first Barbie, now it's about rockets, amazing. And every time I have this song, Fly Me to the Moon, and I put it at that moment when I see the rocket is going on. Now it's going to Mars, but still Fly Me to the Moon, just it's amazing song to hear, to listen to when I see this beautiful thing going on. It's amazing. And excitement with achievement, amazing feeling.
Yeah, and what
That's true.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's true. Now rocket is on the height of 196 kilometers, and it has 4.5 kilometers per second velocity. We are approaching the separation, the first and the second stage burn.
Fantastic.
So the next launch to Mars will be the NASA's probe, or it will be the Chinese one? Which one will be before?
Is it China?
China will be launched in 3 days on 23rd, as I know in my memory, and on 30 July will be launched American rocket. We passed the point separation of the first stage, and we have the second stage burn.
Just bringing the news up there. Yes, you can see that's happening on the news. There's a nice little diagram.
Yeah.
So when will they know that they've got the trajectory correct and the speed? How many times will they have to go around the Earth? 1 or 2?
First, it will be accelerated on the low Earth orbit, and after that there will be separation of the probe.
Okay.
From a diagram, I see we have passed the separation of the first stage. I will make full screen. And engine cutoff, second engine. And we will have the next point of the trajectory if there is a second stage cutoff. And we are going, so far so good, is going according to the flight plan.
Okay, here we go. Once the first stage is completed, the rocket is jettisoned and put into the Earth's orbit. It stays in the Earth's orbit until the exact alignment with Mars is achieved, after which it is reignited to push it on a trajectory towards Mars with the right direction and velocity of 11 kilometers per second. The upper stage gently deploys the HOPE probe. So it'll go around and around and around the Earth until they achieve the correct trajectory. So, which could just be, you know, one time. It could be let's see how long it takes, but that's the phase plan at the moment. So yes, so once the rocket is jettisoned and put into the Earth's orbit, stays in the Earth's orbit until the exact alignment with Mars is achieved, after which it is reignited and push it on trajectory towards Mars. So I guess we're just going to wait for that.
So keeping fingers crossed.
Does anybody know the total travel time to Mars? Obviously, with the orbits, we're in a close period of time. But how many days or weeks does it take? Does anybody know that?
I think it will be about 6-7 months time of flight to the Mars.
Yeah, it's about 6-7 months.
Which really puts it in perspective for human travel. If we're in a short distance to Mars now, and it's going to take 6-7 months, that's a lot of space time. That's a lot of time sitting around in space if we're going to send humans there. The record time of humans walking in space or living in space or hanging around in space, I don't think it's 7 months, right?
Yes, about 6-7 months.
It's a long time. It's a long time. And then what? They get to Mars, and then they got to wait 2 years to come back.
No, actually, when with the Starship program with Elon Musk, what he's trying to do, whoever is going to go, I believe they will settle there. So
yeah,
it's I don't think. Yes, I don't think they will be back for now until we become really spacefaring and we get into new technologies to reduce this timing and get Starship going and coming back round trip. Until then, we will see what's going to happen. But Andre could explain more about Starship technology and what Elon Musk trying to do with the Mars missions.
Okay, Elon Musk is going to build a fully reusable two-stage rocket, which is a dream of many generation of aerospace engineers. Now works are focused on getting the upper prototype of the Starship, SN5. And Elon Musk wants to send every 2 years as many Starship as possible, and we will see what will be in the future, because according to the history of the SpaceX, first 4 launches of the Elon Musk, half were the success, half were the failures. introduction of the Dragon capsule for the commercial cargo was also delayed, and I would like to see I will believe when I will see, because rocket technology is high-risk development technology, and that is why we have to be prepared that 2024 term of sending of the first missions by the Starship is a promise, yeah, because Elon Musk is yet to develop fully prototype of the system and test it as Americans did during Apollo program. That is why I am enthusiastic about his plans, but from my professional development and what I have seen during last 20 years of the development reusable launch vehicles, we have to see what will future bring to us.
Mr. Ahmed, we were talking before about the journey time, the trip time. What challenges do you see in terms of, should we worry about bringing people back? Should there be a no return policy? What do you see? I mean, do humans belong in space? What do you see? 7 months sounds like a long time, long trip, very hard on the body, right?
Yes, that's true. The longest periods of the exposition for the microgravity belongs to Russians and Americans on the International Space Station. And yet we don't have the data on the exposition of the human body in the range between microgravity, which is on a low Earth orbit, and between Earth's gravitation field. We have many uncertainties how human body will be developing on during the surface exploration on Mars, and when people will be living there. It is a very challenge for the space medicine, and also we need more data on it before the commencing full colonization program. Elon Musk, let's assume that he will construct of the Starship launch vehicle, he will have tested, but there are no plans how will he colonize it. Elon Musk will have a transportation mean of people from Earth to Mars, but how will he develop the space colony? Who will support this plan? How he will finance it? That is many unknowns in plan of Elon Musk to making humans multiplanetary space, and I think that many help will he need to make it true. That is my opinion on Elon Musk plans.
That's very good. And Mr. Ahmed, what do you want to add to that, or?
Yes. Well, already the 6 months for me is not the worst thing, because there are already astronauts that spent even 1 year in the ISS. But the issue is that the ISS is orbiting the Earth, and they still can see the Earth. But imagine psychologically what would be your mindset when you don't see the Earth, when you don't see the mother planet in front of you. That would be something not very easy to deal with, psychologically speaking. That's why, in addition to the health issues that can happen because of microgravity or radiations, there is also this psychological effect, and there is also then the technological effect, because this is still very risky. You know that missions to Mars, we lost 60% of the missions to Mars. Only 40% made it and got successful orbit insertion or landed successfully on the surface of Mars. The others were lost or were crashed. Or so the issue is that when you have humans, this can something like having an accident like this can end up all the space program of nations and or collaborative space programs. So there is a huge technical risk, especially in the orbit insertion around Mars. That's why actually now there are projects that aiming to establish a constellation of satellites around Mars for navigation to actually first help the spacecrafts and the probes that come from Earth to get successfully this orbit insertion around planet Mars. So they send them navigation signals to guide them and also to help them communicate with Earth, especially for probes that are entering the atmosphere of Mars and going to land on Mars. In general, these probes don't have enough energy to actually communicate directly with Earth. So they use this constellation of relay satellites to communicate with Earth. So we still need infrastructure actually around Mars to help us secure and make sure that the future manned space missions will navigate safely to the planet and will be able also to land safely and to lift off safely from Mars and to get back to Earth. So there is the technological side that is also still to be considered very seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to add something, a lot of things about this. I am a strong supporter of Mars settlement. So I don't like to say colonization because we don't use it anymore because of the hostility of that word. So what I said it's because of the future risk of extinction, and I follow Elon Musk about what he has as planned. And I would like to say something. A lot of things going on right now in technology, they're not really brought to the public. And one of the biggest giant leap is gonna happen is the quantum leap. And if you go through what is going on with the quantum world right now, there is a race. There is a race between different stakeholders. And if you go to the technology, and I am new to it and I learn and everything, because there is a big threat, I started to look at it and the risk with the issues that could happen against the peaceful use of space, and I'm going into the research and things like that. But I would like to say something about Starship, Elon Musk, and his projects. And Elon Musk is backed up by U.S. government, so it's not only acting on his own, and he's someone who has ambitions, but he also businessman, and he knows what he's doing, and he will not engage in activities just for the sake of engaged in it. He's a businessman at the end of the day, and he said one thing, and it's in the main like when you enter into Starship web page, and he said you want to wake up in the morning and think the future is going to be great, and that's what being a spacefaring civilization is all about. It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past. And I can't think of anything more exciting than going out there and being among the stars. And this is what is the space culture about. Now we are looking at space culture. It's never been like this before, even though space was really occupying human kind. And since our existence, we look always into the stars and we think about what is out there, and curiosity-driven ideas, looking for the heavens that it's been called before, looking for God, creator, and so on, and what is beyond there. But going up to Mars is not just something is going to come up all in the sudden, because if you go and look for NASA's programs and the plans that they have, you could see that they are working on DNA engineering. So with the human settlement, they are really active with the centers, scientific researches, and so on for genetic engineering, and all will be revealed as soon as we go a little bit further with the things. And that's why also investing and sustainable investment into space sector is very important in order to move forward with the outcomes and with the programs and exploration plans.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and genetic engineering, bioengineering, all that sort of stuff. Maybe that is the way we have to go with the different conditions that we're going to face in space and on Mars and on Venus and other bodies. Do we adapt ourselves and our biology to suit their needs, or do we change them and their structure in order to suit our needs? And I think that's something we're going to be bumping up against. And it'll probably end up being a mix of policies. Biohackers here on Earth already, who are doing what they do in order to change themselves to suit a new and emerging environment. So, I wonder. It is a huge thing. On the quantum thing, the quantum field, we're bumping, this is the problem with this generation, is what we're seeing here in the space race is the end of the 50 years of the microchip. We're bumping up and down on the ceiling of the end of the microchip era, space being an inevitable outcome of that. And we haven't yet really discovered a new technology that's been somewhat astounding outside of the microchip. And this is, I think, you're right. It might come from the quantum world. Quantum randomness might generate some sort of enigma technology that will propel the next 50 to 100 years, maybe more, of innovation. But we are bumping up and down on a technological ceiling, a scientific ceiling. The microchip era is ending, and it's ending in space. And I don't know. I don't know how we're going to get through that one. Maybe it's going to come from the quantum world. Maybe quantum randomness will generate some sort of new technological... also, space exploration is the other one. We don't know what else is out there. We haven't yet filled up the periodic table, so there might be something else out there. And also this extraterrestrial life idea, new forms of life, whether they're biological life like us or other forms that we don't yet understand or know, or interdimensional life, and also the discovery of dark matter is a big one that consumes a huge percentage of the universe that we know, but we don't understand it fully. So there are possibilities. There's production possibility frontiers there. But yes, it is a problem that we are bumping up and down on the end of the microchip era without really having a clear path through. And you can see that with things like Alpha Centauri. How are we going to get to Alpha Centauri without traveling, for generations and generations? It's virtually impossible. Almost. In our current state, it almost is. What do you think in Poland, or Mr. Ahmed? What do you guys think about what Malik is saying here?
I can see that future is full of surprises, but also I need to be aware that we have the similar expectations before the 21st century about space tourism, about the reusable launch vehicles, and so on and so on, and .coms. Also, there were indication that there will be breakthrough in quantum engineering, but what happened? Now we have the first satellites which were testing quantum key distribution for ultra secure communication. We don't have yet quantum teleportation, which were claimed to be in over 20 years ago. And we have to be humble about the technology that we have always failures. We have to overcome them and go forward. We have to be smart in setting smart objectives, which have to be specified, measured, time-related, and so on, which every businessman knows it. Elon Musk also have to be realistic in his visions and other things, because technology is a technology. He has own rights. It has own failures and so on. That is why I'm enthusiastic and parallelly skeptic, because we have to be balanced in our expectations. You told about the reaching the Proxima Centauri star, which is nearest closest stars to the Earth. We don't have yet technology which allow for fast reaching of it without to get the light of speed, but there are theoretical works conducted by Alcubierre about warp drive, which are based on physics basics. And who knows, maybe we will get technology in few years which make all chemical or rockets obsolete, and Elon Musk's rocket too. We have to be prepared, because we can have unexpected turn like COVID-19 pandemic, but we can have discovery which can change our point of view for many things forever.
Yeah, a phase out of chemical rockets would be good, and replaced with some sort of, as a backup, maybe they would be okay, but some sort of space elevator is a much more stable proposition, especially when it flicks to cargo transfer. Mr. Ahmed, what do you think?
I still don't think space elevator is really physically possible.
Carbon nanotubes?
Sorry?
What about carbon nanotubes? Do you think?
I don't know. For instance, I don't really think that's very, very achievable, but maybe with scientific development, technological development, it will be that will be proven to be possible. But for now, I'm not really very sure about that. But yeah, we'll see.
And what do you think about Malik's, talking about becoming a spacefaring species, Elon Musk's vision out there among the stars?
Actually, it's I also I support that idea. It's especially with from the scientific point of view. Actually, the issue is that we detect asteroids very late, and sometimes it's we don't have time to do anything about them. There will be the planetary defense missions that will be very important for humanity. So we will see if we will really can change the orbit of a binary asteroid. It will be the DART mission that will target the Didymon that is orbiting Didymos, and we will see if we can change the energy of the system and change its orbit. But if not, we will be in a big trouble, I think, and we should find another solution, because otherwise we don't have any protection to Earth, and the only way to protect ourselves is to escape. And so it depends on the success if we can really protect ourselves. Otherwise, we should really go for this interplanetary species idea and philosophy.
Cool. All right, Malik. Well, is there anything else you wanted to is there any news coming in, Malik? Anything else that you wanted to say? We've seen the launch. We think it's going to work, right? It's happening.
It's happening, yes. Actually, let's see in 6 to 7 months, and then we will be really, really happy. So because this is only the start, and the main outcome or purpose of Amal probe is the data and the scientific outcome from the mission. So we keep our finger crossed, and hopefully it will go as planned, and it will be safely on. It will be safely arriving to Mars, on Mars, as per the mission plans. And let's move forward, because at the end of the day, after Hazza going to the space station, the Emirati first astronaut, now the moon mission, the Mars mission. Let's see next step what's going to be. Probably another giant leap of the United Arab Emirates to go and sign one of the agreement, maybe in the Artemis project. We never know. Maybe it's going to happen, because so far I haven't heard about it. But they are. I heard that they have a lot of agreements to be signed with other spacefaring nation in order to move forward with the space program. And I would like to add one thing. Actually, the space economy and the climate, the space, let's say, economic environment or climate in UAE, it's very, very promising for investors to come into the UAE in order to invest in the space sector and space activities over here. First of all, there are different reasons why. Stability of the country, stability of policies and national laws, protection of private properties. So if you have a property here, you are protected. The private property is protected under the Constitution, is protected under other laws. IP rights, they are also protected. Justice system is very, very up to the international standards, and we are practicing here. I see how justice system is one of the best justice system in the world. What else I would add? Yes, foreign direct investors, they have specific regimes here, and it's very appealing to international investors, because before the property in investments, it could happen with 51% to the local outside of the free zone, and the rest is for the foreign investor. But now with the new foreign direct investment law, private investor can own up to 100% ownership in their in this venture in UAE. Of course, need to fulfill the rules. We have positive list that it is published on the government site, that you can see what activities you can have. And of course, foreign direct investors, they can have special, even more protection because they are governed by international or bilateral treaties that they are very, very having a lot of incentives, a lot of protection under international law, and so on. So I think that for international investors, if they want to invest in the space sector in UAE, it's the best time ever to do it, because also the UAE, the space agency, and the economic government entities that are offering a lot of incentives, and they have programs for startups and so on. So yeah, be part of. I'm not doing marketing. They're not paying me for it, but really because I work in a lot of jurisdiction, and actually I see how this jurisdiction is very appealing to international investors.
Wow, very cool. Well, any more news from Poland? Any more updates from the Mitsubishi headquarters? Anything else we got to know about the rocket's performance and the separation and its constituent parts?
Currently, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is showing about history of the rocket, about their new development on H3 rockets. They are displaying tests, and so far nothing new about Emirati Mars mission Hope.
All right.
But I think I think all is going according to plan.
Fantastic. Well, that's really good news. And, you know, I'm really excited for the UAE here today. I think this puts them on the map. It puts them in a leadership position. And hopefully the scientific knowledge that we gain from this is going to be really beneficial to humanity and to future missions to Mars, whatever capacity they be, whether they be robots or eventually humans, which is what we would like one day. So no, really well done to the UAE, and congratulations to Japan for a great launch. Looks like everything worked out after the weather. Anything else from you, Ahmed, over there in Brussels?
Yeah, actually, I'm following a little bit the social media, and it's a great, it's a huge pride for all the Arab nations tonight, and we see a lot of interactions on social media about this launch, and we are really proud of what happened tonight. And I hope it will be the beginning for a new, better future for the region, based on the young people that are ambitious to develop their countries and to develop the region. So this is, I hope that we all get this message from this hope mission, that we all have hope, more hope, let's say, to improve our countries and be more active in the global economy, and to tackle the global challenges, and not just passive or contributing not really significantly. So actually, because you know also that the Arabs at one time before in the history, we had a lot of scientific development. We even led the world at one time in the scientific development. At that time, you just look at the stars and you will see a lot of names of Arab stars, Arab names of stars. So that means that's one of the proofs for the Arab golden age in science and technology. So I hope that this will mark the fact that we will go back to these to participate to the international efforts in technological and scientific development. So it's very important for us. It's more than just sending a mission to Mars. It has a huge value for all the community. And I am very happy to have the opportunity to share this with people around the world through this session. So thank you very much, really, for giving us and providing us this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. The Islamic Golden Age built up universities, mathematics, the Arabic numerals, you know, and a lot of astronomy and things went on. And yeah, it's great to see Arabs back in space. They're going to do a lot of hard work. We need every person we can in this effort, and it's going to be great to see them in a good, strong position going back. And you know, it's events like this that really do energize the base. And I think His Highness there in the UAE is got a good vision of how to positively energize the youth base and the science base and people's imagination, you know, throughout the region. This is a very, very good thing, and it's good for Arabs to see Arabs leading the way. You know, not just Israel, you know, out there in the Arab region, but actually Arabs as well participating in their own ventures, and Mars too. And it's fantastic they're pushing all the way to Mars, which is a big push when you really consider it. So no, this is a very exciting day for the UAE. It's a very exciting day for Arabs everywhere, and for science and technology and human collaboration. So very exciting. All right, well, I want to thank everybody. If anybody else has anything else to say it now or forever hold your peace. But otherwise, I really want to thank everybody for helping us walk through this launch today over in Japan of the Hope satellite, which is on its way to Mars to do scientific tests about weather on Mars, and that's very exciting. So, has anybody else got any comments?
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And have you seen my hat is saying bye? Have you seen that?
I love it. I'm gonna come there one day and I'll buy it. I'll buy one of those hats.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Right,
thank you, guys. Thank you for
very, very good. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's a bunch of good people, and we just covered a Mars mission launch. So we hope everybody's having a good day, and we'll see you in 7 months on this same topic when we get to Mars. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Life. We have goals that depend on bodies and brains. We work and learn better. We love better when our bodies and our brains function better. At Thrivous, our goal is to help you improve your brain and body, to help you achieve your goals. So that's the power we encapsulate. Ready for help with your goals? Visit Thrivous.com.
Alone. Uncertainty. Doubt. Fear. In a strange place. Something stops you. Challenges test your strength. A rush of adrenaline. The light. The air. It is the moment.